Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And yeah, good afternoon. Thank you all for the very nice presentations for the organization. I learned quite a bit. Actually, you answered the question, I think. Was it somewhat before? How does the NFDI reaches people? I mean, there was via email, via personal networks and so on. No, but that's just part of the story. Actually, I put here as I'm working at the University and City Library in Cologne. I'm there responsible for research and publication support. So my focus is on research data management for the whole university, but I'm also involved in the NFDI for Health Consortium, and as well in something called C3RDM. It's a little bit Star Wars-like maybe, but it's the Cologne Competence Center for Research Data Management, which is a central service unit. And being part in all these projects, let's say, that brought me to the point of, well, actually, how is the NFDI or how are the consortia actually reaching the researchers at a research institution really on a small scale level? Because I think that's one of the main challenges that we are facing. And well, it's the last talk today before the conclusion and the sightseeing. So I was thinking of entertaining your imagination a little bit on what could we actually do, or what are we doing and what could we actually do better? Let's see. Okay. I guess that became quite obvious today for me also in this discussion, is when you're looking at the adoption of innovation, then in the 20th century, you just had these, or quite often you had these S-curve shaped parts where you had some kind of innovation, and then you had quite a long time actually to take, to get acquainted to these new innovations or to these new technologies, and you actually had the chance to adopt your social practices and institutional organization around this. And when you're looking at the 21st century, in particular with the digital transformation, you have a rapid set of punctuated innovations. So it's actually, there's so much happening. And I've learned today that there's so much happening also in the AI sector with knowledge graphs and so on. That it's really becoming a challenge for individuals or for communities actually to engage and to get acquainted with these changes or innovations. And I think this is part of the problem. So it's about adoption of new tools and practices. I think the practice part is maybe the important point here. As we heard several times today, we have to change, or the FAIR principles in open science, they are fundamentally transforming the way science is done. And with the digital innovation and the new tools, of course, this has quite a profound impact on the work of every researcher. And I mean, there are nice examples, or there's a history of, well, not nice, but kind of counterproductive examples in history where there were approaches like, we build it, they will come. So there is some IT people, there was some very nice infrastructure being built, which was on a technological level superb, but actually it was then an absolute failure to bring this into practice, and it was really refused by researchers. And I can tell a little bit about this because now I have to just jump over to this image here. Tell a little bit about this because this is an image from Seamless Astronomy. I'm by training an astronomer, and I did research for quite a while. in that field. And actually, the virtual observatory, which was like, it's now like 20 years ago, kind of the first approaches to a virtual observatory. So bringing all the astronomical data from the observatories and laboratories together. This was kind of such an approach. We built it, they will come. It actually didn't work. And so they had to start again. And I think that's the main, it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, or it's the mission of the NFDI to do a user-driven or a community-driven development of these infrastructures. But you see, I mean, it's kind of, it's a moving target, and it has to involve lots of interaction between infrastructure development and researchers and a bunch of other professional and actors. So now I go back to this slide, and I was thinking to focus a little bit on one aspect that that you could say, well, the NFDI, I mean, they have just so many people working or engaged in the NFDI consortia, and they can just do a certain amount of outreach and making these kinds of nice workshops, training schools. But let's say you're just 40 people, and I mean, to bring this really into the community, into practice, I mean, requires quite a big or larger amount of activities. And I think what could help is stepping back a little bit and thinking about what other actors are there around that could actually help you as researchers in finding out about NFDI, the individual consortia, what they are doing, and actually helping you also to implement their solutions into your workflows, into your current practice. And these could be data stewards. And when you think of the local RDM services that I'm also part of, because we are kind of longing to get more information from the consortia, actually to kind of learn ourselves what are they offering and how we can actually bring this on a local level to the researchers. So it's a different approach. I mean, you have on the one hand side, you have of course the research communities in which you are organized, and where I think also there is some acceptance with time being developed, but there are other players that could support you in the practical aspects. We have seen this image before, so there are a number of consortia, and they all want to address their communities. And in the far future vision, there is supposed to be one NFDI, so everything should be interoperable, coming together, so that, let's say, the big interdisciplinary questions can also be tackled. So I was thinking, well, the consortia as they are right now, they are driven by the scientific communities. So you start with a scientific community. There can be already sub-communities which have very different cultures themselves, but let's stick to one scientific community X. Then you have the NFDI consortium, which is made up of infrastructure partners and research partners. And I think there is, of course, an overlap between the scientific community and the partners or the institutions that make up the consortia. But the consortia themselves are already, let's say, they realize the potential of the NFDI and of making data fair and transforming the research processes. But there's quite a large community there which never heard about NFDI, never heard about FAIR or data management. I mean, this is, let's say, the daily business on the campus level. When I talk to researchers, then many of them say, well, what do you mean? Or they just say, oh, I want to hand in a proposal and there's this, I have to write something, please help me. But I don't want to think about this. And then I put here some other actors. I mean, there's a lot more actors or stakeholders that you could put in such a graphic. Then you have the professional associations or the Fachgesellschaften, translated this to English. I think they are very important, maybe more in the future perspective when you think of education and the basic training on a bachelor, master, PhD level, so that they can actually or they have something to say about the curricula and how to set up the education, the future education. I think when it arrives at that stage, then we have achieved quite a bit. But I think that's the future, the generations. I mean, right now we have the problem that the current practices have to be changed, should be changed. Then, of course, there are the research institutions in which the researchers of the scientific community are located at, as well as these institutions also make up the NFDI consortia. So the infrastructure usually is associated in the in the research institutions. And then you have the NFDI association, which is kind of an umbrella for all the individual consortia, but also the members, the institutional members that constitute the consortia. They are also part, or they can be members of the association. So this, in principle, there's also some potential in this association where all the individual stakeholders are coming together. But I think this is also quite a big process. I mean, perhaps a few of you know about the sections in NFDI. So there's cross-sectional topics. No, cross-cutting topics. So about something like education or metadata or tools and standards. They have working groups there where people from all the consortia and also and that's the potential, I think, also from outside the consortia could participate in these working groups to drive forward the development. But currently it's like there's so much extra work involved in these sections for everyone, so that this is a challenge of itself. And then, of course, they can all communicate with each other and should communicate with each other, actually, to reach then, all these agents kind of have influence then on the scientific community. And I think it's, quite a complex situation that we are in right now. And that the consortia also have struggled with this. There's no easy solution, sorry to tell you that at the moment. So we've heard before and also seen at the posters that, of course, the consortia, they have a range of community engagement activities, websites, social media, roadshows, training offers in schools like this one today. I think here, from this point, it starts getting more practical and more interactive, I would say. Then you have workshops, surveys, and also some consortia, they have flexible funds to carry out small projects. And I think one very important learning is that the more practical you get, the more you can interact from the NFDI perspective with the researchers, and actually if you can show them that it works and that it's easy to use, then the chance that they adopt your tool or your product is somewhat higher. I found this while thinking about this talk. I found this headline, this provocative headline, which I think has some truth to it, although I would still think that awareness is important. But let me continue with what I said at the previous slide. So I think experience, also some research in adoption of new technologies shows that if you have examples, if you have working examples, if you have these use cases and you can show an added value, then the researchers really they have a higher chance of getting adopted. So you really have to think very hard about the context of the individual groups, and you have to be very specific. And then if you can do this, and I mean, this is a challenge. I mean, you cannot, it's very hard to address every single subgroup, for example, of your communities. But to think about how can you make very specific use cases and show these added values, because only then, when you think for yourself, I mean, if there's no added value, why should you use something? And then there's knowing who to ask. I think in that sense, awareness is important, because when networking, I think, is a very important resource. And then you can think of your local networks, of your peers, but you can also think in terms of when you're sitting at an institution, research institution, university, then you can think of all different actors there. And these days, there are also something like data steward networks or data science networks on a local level, where people across the campus come together and exchange their experiences. Maybe there's also some common learning going on, but knowing who to ask in terms of then also the library or the consortium, you have to know about this, can be quite, or is essential in a way. And then let's say the deepest level of adoption or of really contributing to the change and making the change yourself, your own, is if you start working together and learning, and thereby also learning together. And I think in that sense, at least our experience in NFDI, I will show you an example later on, are these data stewards. So where you have people either on a local level, so you have on a university level in the research project, or you more and more NFDI consortia, they are employing data stewards, that these people they are kind of the mediators between these groups, and and they can work very closely with the researchers, so, and help them actually via ramps, for example. So with ramps, I mean that you go from stepwise iteratively to a new technology. I mean, sometimes it's like, we heard this morning about the Wikimedia tools. Sometimes it could be like, so from tomorrow on, you use the Wikimedia tool. And I think that's, many people then would say, oh, wow, what's that? I have to learn about this. And does it really help? And how do I transform everything, my work process, my workflows, that I can use it? So if you start with an Excel file and make this more interoperable and go step by step, this of course takes much more resources and time. Perhaps is one aspect where these data stewards can help and make the change possible. And I think proximity, which I learned recently, is the term in terms of spatial, but also time, in a time domain. Proximity is, I think, also a key in this. So sometimes it's like the research, I mean, you have a problem that you want to have a solution for. And then people come to us, at least on a local basis, and say, well, I need a solution right now. Do it for me. I don't have the resources. I don't have the skills for that, and do this. I mean, that's one thing of the one important aspect that I think also the consortia have to think about this. And the other thing is, of course, how quickly you can how quickly you can react and work together with researchers to implement or to develop new adoptions for this. So let's come now to an example. As I said, I'm working in NFDI for Health. It's the National Research Data Infrastructure for Personal Health Data. And to give you just a quick glance of what we are doing is we are trying to increase the value of research in terms of, or in the fields of epidemiology, public health, and clinical trial-based medicine by making the data fair and adhering, of course, to ethical and legal restrictions. I mean, that's the big challenge for NFDI for Health, that we have to deal with these highly sensitive data. I should say that the focus is here a little bit more towards clinical or prospective studies. So prospective studies they are planned in advance. So they have usually a high quality data and a good description of the data, but every study has its own description. So it's really hard to bring information about these studies together. And to find, so to say, to search for studies that you are interested in. The consortium is made out of 3 different sets of institutes. So one, of course, the driving force are the research institutes, which are involved in the data collection and are hosting data. Then we have institutes which are more on the infrastructure side and thinking about or working on developing standards and methods for data description, data exchange. And then we have institutions which are focused on community involvement. And that's also where the University and City Library is involved. So we don't really have biomedical expertise in our house, but we have quite an expertise and experience in reaching the communities and supporting also in terms of training and user research. This is quite a busy plot, but this is the main infrastructure that we are developing. And just think about this when you're looking at this building here, this house. These are the data holding organizations. So typically, we have a federated data infrastructure. So all the data have to be located at the place where they are primarily collected due to legal or data protection restrictions. And every data holding organization has also its own way of giving access or providing access for researchers to these data. So there's a use and access committee typically, and they have all their individual regulations. And there are kind of these 2 big aspects here of NFDI for Health. So making study information. So we heard about from Leila before. It's the metadata. It's the information about the studies. So not the study data themselves. They are protected. They are located in the data holding organizations, but making these studies just the basic information about these studies available is one thing. And then, of course, we are trying to work on a harmonized way to provide access to these data, so that you can, if you find the data set in the Health Study Hub, then you can in the future go to the central access point and ask for permission to use the data for your research question. And then there's at least a central process that then creates access inquiries then to the relevant data holding organizations. And yeah, a third aspect then, of course, is in this federated structure, how you can do federated analysis. So there's something like a personal health train or data shield, which actually can carry out analysis over these secured data sets while moving from data center to data center, and then gives you back an answer to your research question. That's the things that we are working on. And currently, we have, well, demonstrators for all, and the Health Study Hub really is productive. So if you look at the NFDI for health.de webpage, then you can also find, can access this Health Study Hub and look for studies and find lots of metadata. And the new thing I should not forget to mention is also that we are not just providing information about the studies, but that researchers are also able to publish additional materials like questionnaires, like data dictionaries, and so on. So things that are not restricted, they can publish actually on the Health Study Hub. Whereas in the regular sense, it's more like a search portal. So anyhow, this is kind of a sketch of how we are trying to address or get in contact with our communities, with our users, and get feedback from them. And the main goal is to have something like, we're achieving to have something like continuous development. So it's that we want to avoid, as I said before, we don't build it and they will come, but we start with a minimal viable product, and then we start going out to the communities and trying to interact with them and getting their feedback to see how we can actually continue to develop our services. And one thing to close kind of to come back to the data steward part, we have one project within this community engagement working package where we are trying to establish or we are exploring the role of data stewards in NFDI for health. So we actually employed 2 data stewards, one at the ZB Med, who is focusing on epidemiological studies, and one at our library, focusing on clinical studies. And we were thinking to have these 2 persons who are located at libraries, academic libraries, that they are then engaging with researchers and projects locally, and to see how we can work together to familiarize with a health researcher's perspective, and then co-develop, so to say, with them our publication policies, metadata schema, data management plans, and so on and so forth, and then feed this back into the consortium, of course, but also looking of what are the profiles, or what skills do the data stewards need actually, if we want to in the future have these kinds of data stewards at libraries, for example, and supporting the research communities. So this is graphical representation again for us, was in the end the proximity. So really being close to them and working and spending quite a bit of time with the researchers is very important, because I mean sometimes on the daily business, let's say on the campus level, when I'm thinking of the competence center, it's like you get a question, you just have a brief consultation or a brief answer, and then the customers go away, and you don't have really much time to investigate or to dive in deeply into their problems. So sometimes it's staying on quite a superficial, it stays quite superficial. And here we have really the opportunity to work more closely over a longer time with them. And then we really iteratively developed, for example, publication policy, data management policies, data management plans for epidemiological studies within the context of NFDI for health, so that this then informs the study hub, how to set up the metadata schema in the study hub. We carried out training, and this was also very, very important because so we addressed one specific epidemiological study with all its researchers. And this was really beneficial for them because hardly any one of them really was thinking let's say, in a more structured way about what data management is and what it means for them and what the potential is in particular for an epidemiological study to make this fair and better reusable or usable. And then we have the clinical study pilot project. The difference here was that this one is, as we are connected or collaborating with a competence center, in addition, we have a very good knowledge of the local environment. And what was interesting was that on the local level, we realized that there's still a long way to go actually to reach or to make use of NFDI for health services. It's really that the researchers and the groups, they really have very, very basic needs. So they want to set up an integrated data infrastructure in their institutions, and they need to store the data somewhere, and they are really struggling with where to store the data. And if they are now, we were involved with a multicentric study, so data coming in from different sites. So it's really like something. Well, we have to have the storage infrastructure in the first place. So you see that then it's quite a long way to actually come to the metadata and verification aspects. But we had the data steward, and it actually was very successful in terms of working together with the competence center and providing informing the colleagues in the competence center about the consortium, about what we are doing, so that they can actually propagate this on their own. And our data steward did consultations, but I think the most successful part was then that the data steward was actually involved in a clinical study from the inception phase, from the beginning on. So really that there was a research project that they, via the C3RDM, they knew about that there is NFDI. And the data steward then went in and we helped setting up a data management plan and the data strategy for this project. And this was an EU-funded project where you have to provide a data management plan and things like that. And actually, this was successful, so they got funding. And this person then also helped to implement the local data hub. This is a site, or this is one element of our infrastructure, which, as the name says, local data hub. So this is kind of a local middleware which helps you on an institutional level to make studies, to publish the information about your studies to the central search hub. So this is part of this federated system and help the researchers implementing this. And this was really, this is still going on, but so far it's very successful, so that they are actually thinking within the Uniclinic to have more of these installations. so per project. So that this could be really something where the people start changing their or adopt these new technologies, which then enable them in the end to publish their study metadata to the outside world in a fair way. So wrapping up, I think data stewards can be very helpful in disseminating and information about the consortia and actually to reaching researchers. And also, as I said, acting as mediators between the infrastructure and the researchers, so that there's this communication barrier is somewhat reduced, and that I say infrastructures, but it's also the tools and workflows that they can really be more that they are more user oriented and more have a nicer user experience in the end. Then, of course, as you have seen, they can help bringing these new technologies into practice, not just telling people, well, here we have it, but actually helping them to get local or to have concrete examples of this. And then, of course, by working together, it's also creating kind of a learning environment, because I think we have also the point, I think we discussed it at a poster. I mean, the question also is, what are the researchers supposed to do? I mean, the funders, they say everything has to be fair or open. And it seems like everyone, I mean, the researchers themselves have to do everything. But I think research is becoming more and more, also when you think in terms of infrastructure and software development and so on, it's more a team play, where you have other actors or professionals helping you. And the data stewards can actually be those people. And by working together, of course, you build up your own skills. The data stewards know more, getting better to know the research practices, whereas at the same time, the researchers learn more about the infrastructure aspects. Yeah, and this actually is kind of is reflected in a way by a study that we've carried out 2 years ago, where we looked at what are the profiles or the task profiles of data stewards, and how what is their role in the research environment. And we actually found that there are, let's say, 5 basic profiles, and that these 2 profiles here, the discipline-specific, which supporting data stewards and the infrastructure-oriented data stewards. It's a little, the wording is somewhat, it's not nice. Maybe you have a better name for that, but for the time being, that these 2 profiles appear to be, so we carried out interviews and focus group conversations, and also some a survey, that these 2 profiles appear to be the most wanted profiles, or these were regarded as the profiles that will have the most the greatest impact. Because I mean, here's the important point here is the supporting. So it's really like these are people who invest lots of their time working together with the researchers. And then the infrastructure-oriented data stewards, of course, they have experience in the infrastructure. It doesn't mean that you need 2 data stewards, but you have to have data stewards or teams that kind of have these skills within their profiles. And the other data stewards that you see here, they are more on the consulting, coordinating, training part. But these 2 are really on the operational side. That's the key word here. So let me finish with the road ahead. I think what I haven't really said up to now, but I think the important point here is the multiplication effect. So that, I mean, with NFDI for Health, we can do so and so many training courses. We can have some awareness activities, but we only always reach just a few bunch of people. But perhaps with data stewards, and that we have, let's say, for the in particular for the next funding phase, so hopefully this will happen, we are trying to focus on educating, doing training for data stewards that then can act as multipliers in their home institutions or in their research projects, wherever they are located at. But particular focusing on the data stewards and to see how this helps spreading word about NFDI for Health and all the other NFDIs. Because if we have data stewards on a local level and they are kind of cooperating with the competence centers, which are coordinating and trying to bring together all the individual information from all the other consortia, then we have a great resource for that. And then, of course, this can help them to empower the researchers, you with in terms of these learning experiences. And there's already things going on, maybe also at your places, like data champions. So if you to find role models, I mean, that is also, I think, a very strong, can be very helpful if you find researchers that said, well, here I use this new technology and this is great. And these people can then serve as role models. Kind of data communities, I think, is a also quite new development where these disciplinary boundaries, like today, I think here we also have many disciplines being represented. They go away, these disciplinary boundaries, and people are really focusing on the data, so that there are many people from different disciplines but working with the same kind of data, that they come together and to look how these can be fostered or supported on a local and then maybe later on also on a larger scale. And maybe we had this advertisement thing, I think, before, making advertisement for other events, is that we are currently, as a result of these emerging data steward activities, is that we find on a local level that we are bringing data stewards together from all different, from collaborative research centers, other research projects, excellence clusters, and so on and so forth, that they are interested in learning from each other, but also that they were on a national level, at least, also would like to, come together and to see what the benefits of working together and learning together might be. And there's actually next week, on the 11th and 12th, there's in Aachen at the RWTH, there's a Data Steward Goes Germany, Data Stewardship Goes Germany workshop happening, where lots of data stewards are coming together. And we are also discussing about these community aspects. Yeah. So actually I was thinking, I mean, I was talking about data stewards now quite a lot of, but as you are the NFDI for data science, I mean, there's kind of a overlap, I would think, between data steward, data science, and I mean, I would claim, or I would say that probably you are more on the analytics side, so you want to do something with the data, get new knowledge, and the data management, the data stewards are more on the side of preparing, making the data or providing the data in such a way that you can make new, or can create new knowledge out of these, or find new knowledge out of these data. But I think also as data scientists, maybe that could be, since the research is more and more data-driven, maybe something similar could also apply to you, that you could be acting as multipliers and crossing boundaries between these individual domains. With that, thank you very much.